Back for season 4. Kateri Ross is a full-time licensed marriage and family therapist. I like to call her our resident therapist. This title we chose, Confidence versus Insecurity, is like an umbrella, and beneath that umbrella lies all these other subtopics. When someone is really confident, I just find that they're less judgmental.
Confident people are more likely to believe that everyone has something to offer.
Confidence can be like off-putting for some people.
Yeah, it can be intimidating.
Seems to be this dichotomy. Vulnerability, for example, can oftentimes be a sign of confidence, can also be seen as like a weakness.
Most often society does equate being vulnerable as a sign of weakness automatically.
Yeah.
So a person who is not afraid of being vulnerable is willing to be authentic, regardless of what other people may think. They just don't really care.
Apologizing. My feeling is both of the extremes are clear signs of insecurity. Someone who is unable to apologize when an apology is rightfully in order, I think it's ego-driven, which signifies to me that this person has low self-confidence.
Ego can be seen as a mask that people use to cover up their insecurity.
Next one, humility. I feel like this can go either way.
True confidence actually leads to humility. Humility and confidence are not mutually exclusive terms. The word confident is often misconstrued. It's like cockiness. Internalizing of confidence is more consistent with humility as opposed to externalizing, which can be seen by others as obnoxious behavior, flaunting and bragging. So to be humble means that you don't need to broadcast your success to the world. So confident people let their ability speak for them.
Yeah, have you ever heard that term, confidence is quiet, arrogance is loud? Welcome back, everyone, to Humanity Unlocked. It is me, your host, Kimberly Daya, and we are back for season 4 after a month-long break. Here today with Kateri Ross, I like to call her our resident therapist, and I'll give her a more proper introduction in a second. I was just telling Kateri we're catching up a little bit. I have been off for the last month. Jasmine went on a cruise for her birthday, and so then we came back for that, and then you were sick. So
yes.
Mark filled in. So this is actually the episode that we were going to do to end last season before I took off. So we're doing it now. A lot's happened in the last month, both of us health-wise. We're both going through health issues. If you guys have been listening for a while, you know that Kateri has Parkinson's. So she's on her own journey with that. I'm going through a new journey with my stuff. We're not going to really go into that now, but we were just kind of catching up. And we have a really good episode in store for you today. And I'm going to, at the end of this, give more information on what's to come this season. So just stay tuned for that. Okay, so Katera's with me in studio to discuss one of our monthly topics. As you know, I try to bring her in as much as I can once a month, or at least once or twice a season, to discuss a chosen topic. And today it's confidence versus insecurity. As we dive in, though, this title we chose, Confidence versus Insecurity, it really is like an umbrella title. And beneath that umbrella lies all these other subtopics that we're going to be discussing, like judgment, jealousy, projection, vulnerability, arrogance, humility, self-awareness, negative thinking, knowing when and when not to apologize, perfectionism, and even hyper-sexualism. I feel like each one of those you could do an episode on, but instead we kind of chose confidence because all of these can be kind of a symptom of either having confidence or not having confidence. So anyway, it should be an interesting discussion. For those who are new to Humanity Unlocked, Kateri, she's a full-time licensed. Kateri Ross is a full-time licensed marriage and family therapist. Her private practice, Think Well Mental Health Services, is located in Gold River, which is in Sacramento County. You can find out more information about her practice, her rates, about scheduling by going to her website, thinkwell.health. A link will be provided, as always, in the show notes for your convenience. So please feel free to check back anytime for that info. It also lives on my my about the channel page on YouTube. With all that said, welcome back to the show, Kateri, and thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm
yes.
excited.
Okay, bring your mic a little closer. Can you hear yourself?
No, I can't.
There you go. Bring it a little closer to yourself. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, feel free to just do it.
There we go.
Okay. Okay, so for this month, we kind of went back and forth on a few different topics that we wanted to talk about. Ultimately, we settled on this one because we decided, with it being such a broad topic, like I said, it will allow us to touch on some of these other issues that fall within that general subject matter. So it will be good because there's so much we can go over. In the intro, I rattled off a bunch of different subtopics that we discussed in the pre-interview, and I would love to kick off today's episode by talking about judgment, which we all know I enjoy talking about, and it's kind of how this podcast came about, was based on that topic, the relationship between judgment and confidence. The listeners hear me talk about, you guys hear me talk about judgment all the time because it exists everywhere. I mean, let's face it, it really does. If you really stop and think about it, work, parenting, within friendships, religion, politics, at the gym, on the freeway, in line at the supermarket, you'll find it anywhere. We judge everything, even when we're not meaning to. It's just, I think, human nature. So I've become mildly obsessed with understanding where it comes from and why it is such a pervasive issue. And in my opinion, I believe someone who has a healthy self-image, someone who has confidence, real confidence, so not the fake stuff, not arrogance, in my opinion, is these characteristics typically translate into someone who is less judgmental. When someone is really confident, sincerely confident, not arrogant, I just find that they're less judgmental and they're looking to learn from the world around them instead of judging the world around them. But I'd love to get your thoughts on that. And obviously, you can disagree if if you don't agree with my opinion. So let me tell me what you think about that.
Well, no, I actually do agree that confident people are often less judgmental.
Yeah,
especially towards themselves and other people, just by virtue. Confident people are more likely to believe that everyone has something to offer, and that they don't need to put others down to feel good about themselves. They're also less likely to compare themselves to others and not get caught in self-judgment. So instead, confident people tend to basically derive their sense of satisfaction from their own accomplishments. Someone who's confident tends to be more compassionate, understanding of others, listening to other people, accepting feedback without getting defensive, and showing just a genuine interest in the experience of other people. And confidence sometimes can make people feel uncomfortable, obviously, for good reasons, which can lead to feelings of jealousy, insecurity, and self-doubt. And I think it's because people that are confident can seem intimidating to other people and make others feel inadequate in comparison.
Right.
Yes.
Keep going. I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry. And then again, confidence is the sense of security in one's abilities, while projecting confidence is the act of conveying that, that confidence to other people. So when you're projecting confidence, it can help people make, a good first impression, gain credibility, and handle challenges. So I think some ways to project confidence include things like, body language, having upright posture makes a huge difference, being more confident. I always think I had a friend of mine years ago who wore high heels everywhere, no matter where she went. And for her, that was her boost of confidence. Eye contact, smiling, speaking thoughtfully, clearly and with conviction, and even dressing well. And practicing getting in tune with your emotions can build confidence too.
That's to build
yes.
to build confidence.
Right.
Yeah. Because sometimes I feel and I've talked about this when I had Rana on, and we talked about image and the importance of looking your best so you feel your best. And I kind of mentioned to her that I felt, I think I've told you this, I felt like the more confident I got, the less I cared about what I looked like.
Oh, okay.
It's bizarre. Okay. And I feel like before I put energy into how I looked so I would get attention, and that would give me that boost. But now I almost don't want to put energy in because I don't want the attention. Not that I always get it, but because I'm taller.
Right, there's automatically attention given to you already.
Automatically.
Yeah.
I'm noticed. And then if I put any effort in, and I don't enjoy it at all anymore. And some people like it, and I used to like it, and I don't anymore. But it's interesting. So what you're saying is going through that, it will help you build confidence, which I think with me maybe was part of my confidence building. Hard to say. But what you were saying before about confidence can be off-putting for some people.
Yeah, can be intimidating.
So those who are confident, those who are somebody who's arrogant is not going to care. They're just going to be
no,
well,
whatever,
screw you. That's a you problem. I have had a little bit of an issue with this. It's my own problem. It's no one else's. But I do find that I will try to like I hide. Like I will try to make myself smaller sometimes because I don't, because you can kind of sense when somebody is, when it's off-putting. Like if you're saying like, oh, I did this thing or whatever, and and you sense it, you know? So I get what you're saying about that. I'm glad I'm not the only one that feels that way. Cause I'm like, you know, so do I just not talk about these things? And that's part of the reason why I don't overshare on social media anymore either, because it's it could become like
look at me, look at my life, it's so amazing and great, and then people take it the wrong way when that's not what you're trying to, you know, present. Right.
So it's like a dance. It's like not without being overly self-indulgent, which like I don't even it's hard to even know how to behave anymore with
I know,
you know,
because you're judged all the time by everybody.
It's so hard to know how to behave. But yeah, it's like you know, I don't know. I honestly think that I am judged less by the confident people in my life. The confident people in my life are very quick to celebrate, you know, and be like, no, you should be proud of yourself, like whatever, you should be, you know,
celebrate your successes and accomplishments.
And so those people I'm very comfortable with being myself around and not making myself small. But you kind of get a sense for who, and I don't, like I said, I don't have a lot of the people in my life who are, I'm very good with the boundaries. Like I have really, but I've noticed that the people in my life who are like, for example, Alicia, she was on the podcast. We just spoke about her. She is a confident person, and she is so easy to talk to because I don't have to try to hide anything. Like I'm like my ambitions, I'm not trying to make this all about me, by the way, but I'm the only one here. Feel free to chime in. If there's anything you want to say. Like, have you had any of these issues? Like personally?
You know, I kind of feel like as I've gotten older, I've gotten more confident, and I do less care what people think.
Yeah.
And I think just maturity, I think this just kind of happens automatically. Because I remember being younger, I'm like, I always was worried, like, do I look okay? Not that and it's strange because, like, not that I really cared what they thought, but in a way I still did.
Yeah.
You know, because if I'm confident with myself, why do you care?
Yeah.
You know?
I care about, I don't want to offend anybody. Like, I don't want to, like, I want to be sensitive to, like, for example, if somebody's, perfect example, and this is very hypothetical. If somebody is struggling with money and they're going through a divorce or struggling with money, let's just say they're kind of it, and you just got a promotion at work, and you're you're getting married, like all these good things, right? But then somebody else is going through a hard time. I am not I'm probably not going to like be sharing all that like great information to the person. I'm very sensitive, so I don't want to ever. That's where it becomes like.
Not making the person feel like less than.
Yeah. Yeah. Like there's a way to, I think there's like a dance, like, you know, so I think caring about what people think, I care about wanting to be sensitive to others by not being overly, like braggadocious about whatever I have. But by the way, I've been on the other side of that way more than I've been on the good side. I've been on the very like rubber end of the plunger side of like really getting the shit kicked out of me like over and over and over again. But if somebody else has something good going on,
I'm excited for them.
Yeah. So it's like sometimes it's hard to like understand why it would make somebody feel bad. But who am I to police somebody's emotions? So anyway, I think what you're saying is, or correct me if I'm wrong, but like caring about what people think, that's one thing, but caring about how people feel, that seems like it's something kind of different. Yeah, there's like a little bit of a distinction there. It is a little bit of a dance, though. I would love to, God, I wish I had like a poll. I should have taken like a poll, like for confident people. Like, do they feel comfortable being, like sometimes I watch social media and people that do a lot of self-promoting. And I'm like, how do they do, you know, because for me,
how do they do all this every day?
And how do they feel okay about it and don't feel like
it's all about me and
like
I don't know how they do that. I couldn't do it.
I get so tired of myself. Like even this can be a little like when I'm editing and stuff. But yeah. All right. So moving on. The more I sat and thought about this topic of confidence and all the subtopics that relate back to it, I discovered something that I hadn't really considered before with a lot of these subtopics. There seems to be this like a dichotomy. If we take vulnerability, for example, vulnerability can oftentimes be a sign of confidence because it's an indicator that someone is comfortable enough in their own skin to be unguarded, with their interactions. But on the flip side, vulnerability can also be seen as like a weakness. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? What are your thoughts on vulnerability as it relates back to confidence or insecurity?
Well, I mean, I think most often society does equate being vulnerable as a sign of weakness automatically.
Yeah.
When in fact it's actually really not. So, of course, like giving yourself permission to be vulnerable can feel really uncomfortable, especially for fear that others may be judging you or criticizing you as being like too emotional. Or if you're not in tune with your own emotions, it can make it more difficult to show vulnerability.
Yeah.
And also they may feel safer keeping others, at a distance by projecting like self-reliance rather than being vulnerable. Mm-hmm. So a person who is like, not afraid of being vulnerable is more likely to display like a certain level of confidence within themselves and is willing to be authentic and honest, regardless of what other people may think or say about them. They just don't really care.
Yeah.
I wish more people could be like that.
Yeah.
But in fact, like being vulnerable can be like a sign of strength, and it has many associated benefits. Some of the emotional benefits of being vulnerable is that it allows us to work through difficult emotions more easily. Because again, when you're not vulnerable and you're having a struggle with like your emotions, you can't really share them with other people for fear of being judged again. Being vulnerable inspires us to show courage by making us more resilient and brave. Because I think of that a lot with my clients too. It's like it's brave for them to come into this therapy session to talk about these very painful or intense emotions they have because they've never talked about with anybody else before. Mm-hmm. So I always like appreciate that they do that because it's hard, if you're not in tune with your emotions.
Right.
But it allows us to have more compassion and empathy towards obviously other people. Mm-hmm. And there's like many factors why people refuse to be vulnerable, which can stem from being like maybe in an abusive relationship, criticism from family members or friends, or even experiencing like constant rejection from other people. So like with this being said, it really can impact a person's mental health and just like lead to this like lack of confidence and like, low self-esteem.
Well, I think that the issue or the mistake that a lot of people make is that they think that if you're vulnerable, that means you're not strong.
Exactly.
And I think that that's not true. Mm-hmm. I think that vulnerability is like a sign of strength and it's a sign of bravery. Mm-hmm. Again, it's a little bit of a dichotomy because it depends on the scenario and everything else. But I think that vulnerability is also a sign of authenticity. If you are unguarded, like boundaries and things like that considered. But if you're unguarded and you feel like you can be vulnerable and be yourself and be open, then that's brave because a lot of people, have a hard time with that.
A really hard time.
And I think that's a sign of bravery, a sign of strength, in my opinion. So I think that that's one thing too, like when we're talking about confidence, a confident person being somebody who can be vulnerable and is strong enough to be vulnerable. And also somebody who it doesn't feel the need to judge others. Like these are some of the things I wanted to, as we go along, like just point out, like it's not just the cocky, arrogant guy. It's like some of these other deep-rooted qualities that actually, have you ever heard that term, confidence is quiet, arrogance is loud, or something like that?
Yeah.
I really resonate with that.
Which is actually really true if you think about it.
You shouldn't have to convince anybody like of your value or of what you, who you are as a person, and why. We're all on a journey, and I think that we're all at different points. Like some people they peak a lot earlier, and some of us, it just takes us longer, and it's just like, I think that there are different levels to confidence, and sometimes you don't reach that level to where you feel like you could be completely comfortable with being vulnerable until later on. But maybe you have other qualities that you've picked up that, like, I think I have the vulnerability thing pretty much down, but there's still such a ways to go with me to feel like I fully, reached a level of the kind of confidence I want to have. And a lot of it's probably professionally related, but a lot of professionals have all that stuff that I want, but they're still working on being vulnerable.
The other things being vulnerable with their emotions.
Yeah.
They're not really in tune with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to talk about that too. So I think that it's important to recognize that it is sort of, everybody's on sort of a different track and gaining things in order. So, yeah. Okay. So let's see. Yeah. So with vulnerability, how do you feel? So this is an interesting one. Social media. As someone who used to be an oversharer, I would be overly vulnerable on social media, but not because I was confident, but because I wanted attention. And that comes with self-awareness, which we're actually going to talk about too now, self-awareness now. But what do you think about somebody who is like overly vulnerable on social media? Do you see that as being a problem, or do you think that it is a strength? Because I know for me, it wasn't coming from a place of strength.
I think it can be a little bit of both. I mean, if you're like overly vulnerable, I mean, do you really want to put all that out there for other people to hear or see? I mean, unless it's like really building your confidence, that's a different story. But I think it can hurt you, and I think it can help you. But, I have like a couple friends that post everything on social media about just every detail of their life. And I even pointed out to a friend once, I said, maybe you might reconsider like sharing all this information. She's like, no, this is what it's for. I'm like, well, not really. It's not really meant for that.
Yeah.
Because then again, I feel like other people might judge her in a negative way and not a positive way like she's anticipating it's going to bring her.
What do you think is the reason why she does it?
Honestly, I don't really know, because she is a very confident person herself. Like if you meet her, like you just feel this confidence in herself. And I don't know why she tends to do that. And she couldn't really give me a response as to why she thinks she needs to share all this really unnecessary information.
Yeah.
So for her, it's like I never haven't been able to figure it out. And she continues to do that. Post.
Yeah.
So much.
I know a lot of confident people. It's people I would consider confident who do as well. And it could just be that they are that confident that they don't care what you think. They just want to engage the public in a conversation about whatever it is, and and they feel okay to do so, and good for them.
Right.
But I think that there are, and I was somebody that it's like you're doing it for like validation, I guess. And sometimes you're sharing aspects of your life that are really personal. And I wonder about that. I wonder if it's, I don't know, like maybe it's that they don't have support elsewhere.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too, because if you are posting on social media and you really have a hard time, like maybe in a social setting with someone else, like being more confident, I mean, you're like behind this like camera, this phone, right? So you can share anything and not feel there's not anyone right next to you to be judged by. But then here comes all the comments. Then you can be judged that way. So it's like a tricky situation.
Yeah. I have some people in my life who like just not anybody close to me, but where a lot of them will talk about like their mental health stuff and relationship stuff. I just things that feel really private, and but then I just wonder, like, they must be in a position where they just really need support, or they need,
and they want a little bit of attention,
compassion, maybe.
And compassion.
It's tricky. I try not to be judgmental. No, truthfully, I do.
Same here.
Because I remember being that person, like, with my own health, but it was always about like my health stuff, because I always felt like, let me just make you understand. If I just keep telling you, give you more information, you'll finally like get like why I am why I'm the way I am, or why I'm not being the way you're used to. And all it did was I was like digging my grave the more I did it. So not knowing, but I'm also an over-explainer. So I've just had to learn to understand that social media for me is not the platform for that.
Right. But then I see some people on social media and I'm like, wow, they're posting really like important things, like making themselves more confident by doing that. I'm like, wow, I wish I could actually be kind of on their same level.
Yeah, there's a bravery in that too. Again, so many of these things are just it's a balance, and it's a fine line, and it's like I always check my intention. Like, why am I posting this?
Right.
Like,
What's the purpose?
I had something happen, which I shared with you. I haven't announced it yet, but I shared with you during the break. Heartbreaking for me, something sudden, and I haven't announced it yet. And normally that would be something, if it was years ago, I would have announced right off the bat. But, why? Why am I announcing it right off the bat? For sympathy? For, I always try to check my intention, and I'm going to talk about it because I know that there are people who would want to know. But I think that if you check your intention and you're coming from a place that is what would be the word? A place that is like authentic and not with an ulterior motive, then that is, I think, where you know that you're using social media in a way that's right for you. I don't know. Some people literally, that's how they engage with people. They truly use social media.
But then I think too, it's like, if you're posting something personal, like you just mentioned, it's like, I don't want the sympathy, and then that person on the other end feels bad for you, and they feel that this need to actually have to, put a comment, and it makes it awkward for them because they're like, well, I don't really know what to say. What are the words I give to this person to make them feel better? So it kind of makes it uncomfortable for the other person on the other end as well.
Yeah. I could totally see that. Okay, so moving on to another area where this dichotomy exists, apologizing. When I had less confidence, not even that long ago, just 5 years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago, and was maybe more insecure. I have my whole life been a chronic apologizer, and would just say I'm sorry for things that weren't even my fault. I would take blame, unnecessarily for things because I didn't have the confidence to stand up for myself. I hated confrontation. I thought everything would be a confrontation if I were to stand up for myself. So I call that a chronic apologizer, and that's one extreme. But the other extreme, I feel, is someone who is almost averse to apologizing. You see this on you probably don't watch Real Housewives, but you see it on Real Housewives.
I've seen it before. Yeah.
Yeah. They don't want to admit fault, even in the face of clear evidence. My feeling is both of the extremes are clear signs of insecurity, meaning it's my opinion that someone who is unable to apologize when an apology is clearly rightfully in order, I think it's ego driven, which signifies to me that this person has low self-confidence. But what do you think about that?
No, I agree with you on that point too, because the ego can definitely be rooted in insecurity.
Yeah.
So now, while a healthy ego can boost one's self-confidence and help people overcome fears, on the opposite side of that, an inflated ego can have negative consequences. They may lack empathy for other people, maybe highly sensitive to criticism, and maybe become arrogant or even entitled, and display traits such as criticizing and judging others, acting manipulative. Ego can be seen as a mask that people use to cover up their insecurity. And I loved when I came across that statement. I'm that is so true.
So true.
And then people with an ego may have a difficult time admitting that they're wrong. And that's that point you made, like when parents don't apologize to their kids,
Yeah, I had a note to say that. I think that people that are averse to apologizing, it tends to be, it can be a certain kind of person, the word that comes to mind for me is narcissist, but that's the hot word. I had tried out to use that word so much because I know everybody uses it, but it is kind of that profile.
It's so prominent. I hear it all the time. I practice all the time.
Parents, a lot of times, I think, from what my kids tell me over the years, that even when parents are wrong, they think because they're the parent that they don't need to be apologetic. Yeah. I don't know if it's just because that's who they are, or if it's because just they're the parent, but I think this is, everybody parents differently, but I attract, what do they say? I use honey instead of whatever. I think that the more you can apologize, the more you're actually your kids are going to listen to you more. Not that I apologize unjustly, if my delivery on something is harsh, or I could have maybe listened better or something, I will say, you know what, that wasn't fair. I'm sorry. Let's talk about this again. And your kids you earn their trust so much more because your self-awareness and being able to catch yourself and they see you're human, you know, you're not some like all high and mighty. Anyway, so I'm okay with apologizing. I know a lot of parents don't like to do that because I think that they think it puts their kids in a position of power.
Right, and it doesn't actually.
Right. What do you think about that?
Well, my 11-year-old son, I mean, same thing. Like, there'll be times I'll be harsh on him, and then I notice, I'm like, oh, I need to take a step back. And then I will tell him, like, hey, buddy, I'm really sorry. And he's like, that's okay, mommy. And so he recognized, like, okay, mom's apologized. So if he does something wrong, he now kind of apologized for his mistakes too. So I think it's important that you teach your kids that.
Yeah. This doesn't go
practice it.
This doesn't go for everybody,
True.
but I do think that there are certain personality types that they feel like they're gaining power when someone apologizes to them. So because that's the way they think, they don't want to apologize to anybody else because they view it as giving the power away. Like, for example, if I was somebody who gained power by somebody telling me they're sorry, then why I'm not going to, if that's how I view apologizing, I'm not going to be doling out apologies because then you win. They see it as winning and losing. And really it's not. What it is compromising and coming together like, let's revisit this. Let's get on the same page.
Right. You know, come to some like resolve or solution of some sort.
Yeah. Okay. So, I just wanted to say one thing because this is an example I always use. And maybe some that the listeners will relate to. I should make this into a clip. But I, for years, you probably saw it in my note, for years, I'm like an easy bleeder, like with my skin. I don't know if I have thin skin or what. And when I get my nails done, a lot of times they cut me.
Oh, yeah.
Like they're, you know, because I'm just an easy, I think I have thin skin. I'm not sure. And I would always apologize. I'm sorry. And I'm not even the one that did it. Like, I'm the one bleeding. And because I know I'm an easy, I know that they're, and it wasn't like it's not like it happens every time, but it happens a couple times a year. And then they would be like, that's okay. And I'm like, after a while, I'm like, shouldn't they be saying, oh, no, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't mean to cut. Like, it's just so bizarre that I'm the one that feels bad that they cut me. Isn't that so weird? And I think that that's like that's a self-conscious thing. Right. Like I'm now putting you out.
Yeah, because you've apologized so much in your life. It's just like an automatic thing that you just do.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny. I have kind of a similar story. So when I go get my pedicure, it's getting hard for me to get them because of my tremor in my foot with my Parkinson's. So the last time I went with a friend, my tremor started and it wouldn't stop. And so I kept apologizing to the nail tech also. And they felt so bad. I could just tell by the look on their face. I was trying to hold my foot in place to make it stop, and like they did it. I said, if you can't do this, just do one foot only.
Yeah.
But like I kept apologizing the whole hour I was there, and I was like, oh my god.
Did you catch yourself when you were apologizing that like, why am I apologizing?
After a while, I did, and so then I like felt this need to explain like I had this like disease where my foot moves around, you know, and they were like okay with it, but I kept saying, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think I think some of us that are so sensitive to energy, like you don't want to make people uncomfortable. So you're apologizing because they must be uncomfortable. So let me apologize. And maybe that will make it less awkward. And it's just this whole thing. And sometimes it's, I don't know. It feels like it's a bad habit to me. If that's what it feels like, I don't know if it is. I mean, is that giving apology too much credit? Like, I don't know. But sometimes I feel like the more, have you ever heard that term or heard that? I feel like I took like some kind of online course that said something like, instead of saying, I'm sorry I'm late, say thank you for your patience. And I'm like, no. No. If somebody's 30 minutes late, 20 minutes late, 15
That's a
minutes
genuine
late,
apology.
They owe me an apology. I'm sorry, but they owe me an apology.
Right.
You should say, I'm sorry I was late. If somebody says now, doctors, I always know they're going to be late, so it's fine. But they even apologize. But whenever somebody says thank you for your patience, I'm just like, that's not good enough. For me, I want an apology.
Rehearsed.
Well, not only that, like it's rude to be late, to just be late. And so they were training in the course to not apologize. So I think it's important to know that, listen, sometimes it's okay to apologize.
Right.
Like you don't need to like they're giving it too much credit. I think that again, they view it as like giving your power away or whatever. And I don't. I think if you owe somebody an apology, you give them an apology.
Right.
I think you don't need to apologize unnecessarily, but there are certain times when, apology is in order. And I hate being late. So whenever I'm late, I am always sure to apologize, and I just I expect the same in return. But that's just me. Weigh in the comments. I'd love to hear everybody thinks. Okay, so all right, let's talk about being hypersexual. This was going to be an episode. Remember?
Yeah.
We were going to talk
It actually could be a separate episode.
And we may do that. We may do that. You have a friend that would want that maybe would want to come on. And this could go either way. We decided to do the umbrella term of confidence in talking about this subject of hypersexuality, and then then this became this whole thing. But oftentimes a hypersexual woman is someone who is confident in her own skin. She knows what she wants. She isn't ashamed to go after it. She's confident in her sexuality. I know somebody like this. I'm not going to name names, but if she's listening, she'll know she'll know it's her. And like, it is her power. It's like her superpower that she's got this way. And like honestly, good for her. Like, yeah, because it is, she's married. It's not like she's out there in the streets, but
Right.
but she feels this is for her a place of, of confidence, I guess. On the flip side, we also see a lot of women who are hypersexual who are this way for other reasons. There's like a level of promiscuity that it seems to come from something much deeper and more like rooted in insecurity. And I'm sure we all know women like that. I know many like that. Almost as if there's an insecurity that's sort of manifested as a need for sexual attention and validation. So what do you think about that dichotomy?
Well, I want to first mention that having like an insecure attachment is really strongly linked with hypersexual behavior. And so what I mean by insecure attachment is that it's a way of approaching relationships with fear or uncertainty. And this attachment style can make it difficult for people to make like deep, emotional and intimate connections, which you would think would be the opposite.
Yeah.
But they may expect the person to abandon them or hurt them in some way, which can be linked to experience they may have had, encountered during their childhood, like a traumatic experience. And the secure attachment style is developed in childhood and formed in child relationships. So either with their parents or caregivers, and it can manifest into adulthood, which can lead to poor emotional regulation, depression, anxiety, low self-worth. But being hypersexual can be a coping mechanism for various reasons, which can include like managing stress, seeking validation, or just escaping from emotional distress. I don't know if this fits like the criteria of your friend, but and it often serves as a temporary distraction or like an outlet for overwhelming emotions.
Like being hypersexual does?
Yeah, you wouldn't think that, but I think again,
for men, I would think that,
right? But I think this is going to be different among different people too. It's not going to be like one size fits all.
Yeah, 100%.
And for some people with hypersexuality, it's rarely about the sex itself, which sounds kind of interesting. It's rather a way to escape negative feelings and a deep sense of low self-esteem. So you think that this person would be like really super confident, no problems with like, having sex, but again, it can be the opposite of that, where they just like use sex as like this way to mask how they're feeling emotionally. There's like this underlying cause of like having this like fear of intimacy and forming close relationships that can lead to a source of anxiety or something that should be avoided. So the assumption is the person who's hypersexual must have strong sense of confidence within themselves, but it can be quite the opposite at times. And again, this is not for everybody.
Yeah, no, this woman is a grown woman who's married, and like I think that a lot of it comes from the fact that she's just in a really good I don't know. But I could totally see. I think that, when we think about men, definitely I could see this being like they're not great with, well, I don't want to generalize here, but like a lot of men aren't really good with their emotions, and they're not good. Sometimes they're not good with like intimacy in general. So the intimacy that they choose that they are good with is sex, and so like physical intimacy. So that's like their way of, and like if you think about affairs, think about like a lot of times affairs aren't even about like the sex. It's about like they're not getting
what they need from their partner.
Yeah, like connection or whatever. It's interesting how a lot of people approach sex. It's like not, yeah, like, and then a lot of people who are lacking in self-confidence would avoid it. Would avoid sex because they're afraid of, it's fear-based or whatever.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
So it's like so crazy how many different directions you can take this. But in terms of like modern day women, I think that some women I know are very on par with men when it comes to like their, I wouldn't say their drive, but their pursuit. I guess their pursuit. And it's hard because it's like, it's hard to see, like, are they just more masculine that way? Like where it's like they have higher testosterone and they have this
like a release of some sort.
Yeah. Or is it that it is coming from an insecurity? Because with a lot of men, it's not necessarily an insecurity. It's just that men are, men. I don't even have the vocabulary to, obviously, but so I don't know. But I think a lot of women would say, and this is a good point, like to consider, like, well, you wouldn't judge, meaning we as a society wouldn't judge a man for behaving this way. Why do we judge a woman? I'm like, well, I think that it's because people just assume women are coming at it from for a different reason, or
Yeah, I think so too, because again, it's okay for men to act that way, but obviously it's not, like a negative thing for women, because they associate like, well, if this woman's acting out and, sexually, well, then they're like, a whore, or just things like that you just come to mind. It's like, well, what? That's not fair. So I'm sure there's probably a lot of hypersexual women, but you just don't know because they don't ever say anything.
Yeah, because they'd be ashamed. They would be ashamed. They would be shamed by a lot of society, but people don't think twice about it with men. And I think it's just this assumption that women are doing it because they think so. Well, here's the thing. Women are doing that because they must think so poorly of themselves, so they'll just give it away to anybody. Right. And listen, maybe there is a subset of women
people that do that,
but I'm sure men, same thing. It's just, I don't think it's that fair to necessarily generalize that across the entire, gendered population of women. But for some women, when they're less confident, they're more sexual, and when they're more confident, so it's different for everybody.
Maybe they're trying to build up their confidence.
They're trying to build it. Yeah, it's the same thing as like dressing nice and like looking good. It's like, it's like act as if. It's like that movie Boiler Room. If you guys have seen that, you should watch it. It's good.
Right. Well, and also too, just like to kind of, go off of that too, is like, well, if they're building their confidence, they're getting this like recognition and like praise from this person they're engaging with. So then it's going to definitely boost their confidence.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that superficial though? I mean, is that a superficial boost, or is that an actual?
Well,
I wonder.
I mean, it could be both.
Yeah, because I don't know, anything that I did for like that little boost of attention or anything, it wasn't ever a permanent boost. It was just, and that took
like
time
temporary.
Yeah, it's almost like getting a hit off drugs. Not that I've ever done drugs, but it's like getting that hit, that high.
Feeling, yeah.
Yeah, for me. I'm not saying that's everybody. Okay, so next one, humility. Someone who's humble. I feel like this can go either way. I see humility as a sign of confidence personally. When someone is humble to me, I feel like there's no greater sign of confidence, because again, it's like they're not out to impress anyone. And it goes back to that saying of confidence is quiet, arrogance is loud. So humility is usually that for me, that sign. When I see someone who lacks humility, someone who's not humble, someone who's arrogant, I see them as being deeply insecure. I feel like I can see right through it. Yet a lot of people will, align themselves more with arrogance, and they adopt an arrogant persona in an effort to demonstrate what they believe confidence and competence looks like. On the flip side, the insecure person can also be self-deprecating. They put themselves down in front of other people in an effort to be funny or likable. I've done that, still do to some extent. What are your thoughts on this? Can it come in both packages, humility? And I guess another question would be, could arrogance come in both packages?
Well, I mean, true confidence actually leads to humility. So if you're truly confident in yourself, then like you said, you have nothing to prove to anybody.
Right.
So that allows you to be fully humble and to take joy in like whatever you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way to cultivate confidence along with humility is to realize your self-worth. And I think that always goes back to the same points, like with confidence, like self-esteem, self-worth. You have to build that up in yourself to be confident. Another way to encourage both confidence and humility is to practice empathy. And because with empathy, it allows you to see the struggles and challenges that others, may face in trying to achieve what you've achieved. So humility and confidence are not mutually exclusive terms. So having confidence and pride in your abilities and your accomplishments is a marker of self-esteem and self-worth. So I think the word confident is often like misconstrued. It's like cockiness.
Yeah.
Like when it should be more accurately attributed to a person's, innate capabilities.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I couldn't say that word. Internalizing of confidence is more consistent with humility. So as opposed to externalizing, it displays of confidence, like, hey, look at what I accomplished,
Yeah.
Which can be seen by others as obnoxious behavior, like you're just like, flaunting and bragging. So to be humble means that you've satisfied your own internal expectations and you don't need to broadcast your success to the world.
Mm-hmm.
So confident people let their abilities speak for them without having to remind others like of them.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing I feel with confidence. Like you don't need that reassurance from another person. Like if you feel confident within yourself, comfortable, that's all that you need.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. I feel like it's I don't know, like are we being overly simplistic to think that people who share their, like for example, you run marathons. I just did a TED Talk. I have a podcast. So we share these things. Mm-hmm. We share these things on social media. You don't really share much else. I mean, you show pictures of Carter and everything, and Chris.
Pretty much
like
just my
family.
Kid.
That's it. You and Chris and Carter, and like the highlights, kind of like how I do. But like our achievements, I don't know. I feel like I do it at this point. It's a little bit of a chore. I'm completely honest with you, and I'm not just saying this. It's a little bit of a chore for me. I don't necessarily want to be. I feel like I should, and I feel like it's good business. If I want to make it, if I want to make it in this industry, like I need to like
promote yourself,
share this stuff. Yeah, I'm never gonna make it if I don't share it. So that's rough for me. I think for you, having Parkinson's and running marathons is super inspiring. And I think you've probably helped a lot of people. Do you do it because you feel like you have a duty to inspire, or do you do it because you're proud of yourself? What drives you to share? I know what drives me to share at this point. If it wasn't for the podcast, I almost think I wouldn't be on.
I think it's more that I want to try to show other people, because when I got diagnosed, that was my mission, is like I want to try to like inspire other people that if I can do this, so can you, or if you can't do what I do, you can do something similar. So when I post all my runs, I'm not like sitting here like, oh, look at
I can
my
tell.
pace. I just post it because I belong to so many Parkinson's Facebook groups. So I like put it so that, because there's a lot of negativity in those groups, a lot. And they down themselves for things they can't do. It's like, well, I'm trying to inspire them. Like, you can do something, whether it doesn't have to be running.
Yeah.
It could be walking, whatever the case may be. So I try to like inspire other people. I'm not doing it for myself.
You try to lift them up. No,
because I don't like attention.
I know you don't.
I don't like attention at all.
That's why I'm asking. I know you don't.
Only one of those people that like this blend in the background.
I don't even think you necessarily love doing this. I think you're doing it because you like to challenge yourself, and it's good for business.
And I love like meeting with you, so I have fun doing this. But like I get nervous. Like I'm nervous right now.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well. Again, I always tell everybody this is not live TV. We can edit anything out. But even after almost a year, we've been doing this for almost a year.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think most people can tell that in the way something's posted, you can tell kind of like the intention behind it. But for some people, it's not so much the achievement so much as I think it's people like to oversell their happiness on social media.
Yeah.
I think that, and then a lot of times then those couples end up splitting up, and I'm like, what?
What happened?
I'm so now I'm learning not to be so surprised, but there's like this meme or this quote that goes around that if you're trying to convince everybody how happy you are, you're probably, or something like that. Do you find that?
True. Oh yeah, I've actually been told by a close person in my life that what I post makes it seem like I think my life is perfect. And I was like, whoa.
Oh, I don't think that at all.
Wait a second.
Not with you.
So
no.
I went back and looked at my Facebook account. I was like, is that true? But I'm like, I'm posting pictures of my son, like most of the time in running. It's nothing more than just that. And so I had to take a step back, think like maybe I'm portraying something that's not true, because I don't want to like make it seem like my life is perfect, because obviously it's not.
It's not. I wonder if it's because whoever this person is used to seeing a lot of negativity, and then when they see you, it's like sunshine. It's not like you're trying to portray that whatever's going on in your life. Like it's just it's not, you're not overselling anything. But sometimes if your feed is full of negativity and then you see somebody who's just consistently like doesn't have anything bad, like negative to share, it could maybe it's a little bit like they're taken aback by it. Like, oh, you think you're perfect? Like you're not as screwed up as the rest of us. Like that could be like, I could see that if I was in that headspace and I had that kind of feed. But yeah, I mean, what do you think?
It's just interesting. I think I post positive things because we're surrounded in this world with like such negative stuff all the time. The news. I mean, why we don't need to hear more of that.
I know.
And being a therapist, like I'm trying to promote like more positive thinking versus all the negative thinking. So that's why I post more like pictures of my son, because that's a happy subject for me. And but people take it the wrong way. And I think it's also because they might be struggling in their life, and it's hard for them to see other people having these moments of time where they're very happy, they're positive. But again, a picture is just a picture. You don't know what's behind the picture. I could, look like I'm so happy and be feeling awful in my body that day, having a bad Parkinson's day or whatever.
Yes.
But so you can't, again, judgment is always there. So you can't sit there and judge when you have no clue.
No. And I go back and forth. In some ways I go like, why do certain people go out of their way to portray something that's not true? And you find that out after when things go south in their life, and then the truth comes out, kind of thing. I'm like, well, why were you putting so much energy? And maybe they're trying to convince themselves.
True.
Or maybe, who knows why people do the things they do. But
kind of leads into like the arrogance part a little bit.
Yeah. Well, we live in a society now too that's like really rewards
based.
That behavior, huh?
Reward based.
Yeah. Well, and it's like, and going back to that subject of narcissism, it's like, do you follow Dr. Ramani at all? She's like a narcissist specialist. I
keep hearing about her because a client of mine actually listens to her podcast.
Oh, you'll like her.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's got a podcast and a YouTube channel. She's really good. Narcissism is rewarded nowadays.
Well, arrogance is definitely a sign of deep down insecurity. It's when a person feels inadequate that they display this trait. The distinction between like confidence and arrogance is hard to pinpoint sometimes because outwardly the behavior often looks like the same.
Yep.
So it's hard to differentiate the two sometimes.
Yeah.
So one similarity they share is they have no problem speaking up for themselves, that loud voice like you were saying earlier, and they have no problem owning their strengths. But arrogant people believe that they are better than everyone else around them, and they have this like exaggerated sense of their own importance. But on the end of the spectrum is self-deprecation. So self-deprecating behavior is when you downplay your own abilities, like your skills or your accomplishments. And then we use these as like self-put-downs as a way to manage another person's impressions of us. So if the arrogant person's worried about that they're coming off as cocky, conceited, or arrogant, they will downplay their positive qualities.
Right.
And so in the middle of that spectrum is confident. People with healthy self-confidence have a positive self-image and assertiveness. They have a strong sense of their strengths and recognize areas they need to improve in. Instead of letting these perceived weaknesses create insecurity, they will reach out for support. Versus arrogant people will not.
They won't reveal their
no.
Yeah.
So again, both confidence and arrogance are related to self-esteem, which is the way a person feels about themselves.
Yeah.
And again, confidence comes from this high intrinsic value. Understanding the self-worth isn't measured by achievements, failures, or the opinions of other people. And arrogance comes from a sense of superiority over others, and the only way that they maintain that status is to keep others in their place, which is sad.
It's very sad and very narcissistic.
Yes.
cannot get away from the word.
I know.
Sorry.
No, my client that she was involved in she's in a process of a divorce. And so when she talks about her ex, he was a narcissist.
Yeah.
And so she always says the same thing. You say, like, I don't want to say that term anymore. It's so downplayed, but like, she's like, it's so true.
Yeah. It's hard because once you understand that personality type, you can't unsee it when you notice it in other people. And then it's almost becomes easier to deal with them because you know kind of like what you're dealing with. I was going to kind of talk about the needing attention versus indifference. I don't know. Like, do confident people care whether they have attention? I don't necessarily think that they do. I think that there comes a point where you're going to do what you're going to do and be who you're going to be regardless of if anybody's paying attention.
I agree.
And I think if you're confident, if you're not, I mean, you're just kind of indifferent. As I get more confident over time, it hasn't been that I need attention because it's quite the contrary. Again, for me, the whole gratuitous thing, like that's the part of this job that's super uncomfortable. I'd be having these conversations if we weren't in front of a camera and a microphone, you know, like that's just my personality. So that's why I started doing it. I'm like, let me just see if I can make a career out of this. But I do think that indifference is a sign of like, you're going to do what you're going to do regardless of who's watching kind of thing.
Yeah, because if you're confident, you don't have nothing to prove to anybody else, and you don't need validation because you have your own self-validation.
Yeah, exactly. It's so freeing.
It is. Like, I know. It's like when you think back, it's like, why was it like so needing this attention for what reason?
I know. Well, because I think that life is a journey, and I think you're picking up skills and qualities, and you're like,
it's part of the process.
It's part of the process. And it's like now the lengths I would go to, I would never, it's exhausting. It's exhausting.
It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Because you have to be intentional about it.
Yeah. And yeah, exactly. Okay. So in terms of what creates confidence, we talked a little bit about this in the pre-interview. We talked a little about this today. What are your thoughts on what creates confidence?
Well, I mean, definitely confidence is not something you get from other people. I mean, it's really an innate fixed characteristic. So it's something you earn for yourself by doing what is hard and developing like self-discipline required to change your goals into reality. So it's not, you're not going to get that from someone else. You have to build it up within yourself. It's more like an ability that can be acquired and improved over time, feeling of absolute certainty that you can accomplish whatever you set your mind to. And I know that sounds really cheesy because you hear that all the time, but it really is so true.
Yeah.
You know, it's knowing that you can handle, you know, the emotional outcomes and difficult experiences of whatever you face.
But do you have to go through those difficult experiences in order to know that you can face and move through them?
I do believe you need to.
Too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think of people that have been through like traumatic experiences. I mean, to have gone through that and then come out the other end like a more confident person, I mean, that makes sense. I don't think that if you've never had any like difficult times in your life, I don't know how you would really build up confidence within yourself. You need something to kind of like relate to.
Yeah.
Or compare.
Yeah.
You know, you have to begin by acknowledging every emotion, which again, is a lot of struggle for a lot of people, including difficult emotions rather than just avoiding them. And the more that you practice confronting these challenges, you know, the more confidence you gain in facing similar challenges moving forward. So again, speaking up for yourself and limiting self-criticism is important and crucial. There's like a number of ways to increase self-confidence, and most of them you've heard many times before. This is nothing new. Yeah. Of course, the first thing is stop comparing yourself to other people. I can't tell you how many times I say that in my practice. All the time. Stop doing that. Yeah. Surround yourself with positive people. I mean, you don't want to be around negative people because that's definitely not going to build your self-confidence. Exercise, try to eat healthy, getting enough sleep. Self-compassion, you have to be kind to yourself. And I think so many people they don't have any self-compassion. You know,
because they're comparing themselves to everybody.
All the time. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Practice positive self-talk. You know, I can do this. I can get through it. You know, facing your fears, doing things that you're good at, and just like knowing when to say no, boundaries. Yeah. You know,
I feel like, speaking from my own experience and from my daughter too, I feel like the way that we have gained confidence has been through doing hard things. As much as I hate to admit that, It is the truth. It's like because you've earned that confidence by overcoming. It's something she and I both have learned. With her, it's been through a all-star cheer. If you guys have ever seen the show, the Netflix show documentary Cheer, it's very similar to that, and it was very hard, very, very, very hard for her. She wasn't in the best health. When I say hard, it wasn't like damaging. It was just challenging. Mm-hmm. Anyways, they became summit champions in their level, and her confidence went through the roof. Same thing when she did her mission to Mexico. She was in charge of all the drywall in that house. Mm-hmm. And then she was named like the MVP and got to present the keys to the new occupants in Mexico. And that was like in the grueling heat in September in Mexico. Like it was like Tijuana or wherever they were at. Yeah. Anyways, through doing hard things, she has learned, and she would say the same thing. It's the same thing, exact thing for me too. So I do think that is, I think it's an important aspect of gaining confidence, but that's just me speaking for myself. What do you feel like for yourself?
I feel the same.
Do you feel the same?
You have to go through hard things. I actually have a wall hanging in my office that says I can do hard things.
Yeah.
As a reminder of like when I'm having like not the best day, I know that I've done harder things than this and I can get through it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And it's funny because the things that help us grow the most are the things we run from. And it's like, why?
I know,
just embrace it?
If you just confront it, it's not as terrible as you envision it to be.
And getting over it, you're so proud of yourself.
Right. You're like, it's not that hard. So why did I have all this fear around it? Makes
made
no
this
sense.
A bigger deal than it needed to be.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you overthink.
Yeah. Okay. So as we start to wrap up, I want to ask you about a few different characteristics as they relate to confidence or insecurity, just to get your thoughts. These are just some of the things that I'd written down during our pre-interview aspects that I thought kind of related back. So perfectionism. I have friends who like everything in their life, or at least part of their life, has to be perfect. And if it's not, it's a problem. Mm-hmm. So what is perfectionism? Is that a sign of confidence or insecurity?
Definitely insecurity.
But why?
Well, because, I mean, if you think about it, perfectionism is just like this construct of the mind with like no basis in reality. I mean, like, for instance, like if me and you are both perfectionistic people, right? We have our own set of standards. Well, your standards might be different than mine, but we're still trying to meet this like perfectionistic like mindset. You can't measure that.
Right.
So that's one reason like perfectionism is like this false sense of, something you're trying to achieve that's never going to be. And people I think a lot of perfectionism just comes from being told like they weren't good enough. I hear that all the time. Like, I'm not good enough. I have to like strive to be this, like, just do things so much better in this like certain orderly fashion that's organized. And the person really believes that they can meet that level, and they can't. Even
with like, there's some women, if you think about like, well, I'm sure it's mostly like celebrities, but even just us common folk, like they need to look perfect. They need to they don't want to age. They don't want to gain weight. They don't, God forbid, there's a dot of cellulite. Right. They don't, like there's just like they're hyper focused on perfectionism and how they look.
Right.
And I wonder if that comes from maybe a childhood of feeling like they didn't like fit in, or I often wonder. That's a lot of effort. I kind of was like that for a while. Not to the degree I see a lot of people, but it's a lot of work to keep up.
It's a lot of work. Because again, to my practice, I see many clients that struggle with this.
Yeah.
Really, like severely, and it's like, but they get to a point where like if they feel they can't meet these expectations, they won't even attempt to try to do whatever they're trying to accomplish, because they already figure like, well, if it's not be perfect, I can't do it at all.
Oh, interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I've seen that too in people. Well, I've been that too. I should. Yeah, no, I understand that. Because then they're just going to feel like a failure.
Yeah.
Like, why do it if I'm just going to feel bad about myself?
Right. There's no point in that.
Not understanding that the process of attempting something helps contribute to growth as well. Sometimes it's about the process and it is like the end result.
Right.
Especially when we're talking about like professional, in the work environment. It's like starting a podcast. It was like, at first I'm like, everything needs to be perfect. And I'm like, no, it's not going to be. Let's just do it. I'm going to build this airplane in the sky and just try to like put the pieces together as
Figure
I go.
It out as I go. Yeah.
And you learn, and that you learn as you go. It's almost better that way. Anyways, okay. Boundaries.
Did I answer your question for that
no,
one?
No,
Okay,
totally
good.
did. Yeah. Boundaries. Are boundaries a sign of confidence or insecurity when somebody's, and I have something to say about that, but you tell me what you think.
I definitely find it to be a sign of insecurity because it just
boundaries,
means
having boundaries?
Having boundaries. No,
Yeah.
yes, sorry, I misunderstood. No, having boundaries is
I'm
definitely
so
security.
Okay.
Yes. Or confidence too, because if you are confident enough in yourself to set the boundaries, not letting people kind of run you over.
Yeah.
Definitely is a sign of confidence.
Yes. I used to know somebody who had boundaries that were so strong. I was much younger then. Like I would say in my 20s, but it almost seemed like excessive, like almost like Fort Knox around her entire life, and would never, was so inflexible. And I think her boundaries were there as a measure of like safety, because she was always afraid of being, almost out of anxiety, like afraid of being, like as a protective measure. And so boundaries, I think, as we think about them, are super healthy.
Right.
But sometimes it's like people will build boundaries to keep themselves from to let anybody in.
Right. Which is unhealthy.
Right. So it's so confusing sometimes. But I think in its traditional sense, boundaries are a sign of confidence, because it means you self-respect. Like you respect yourself enough to
say no.
Yeah. Which
people don't want to say no.
So hard for people. I mean, you and I both were recovering people pleasers.
Yeah.
It's like it could be very difficult, and yeah, but so freeing too at the same time. I encourage everybody to try it. Okay, people pleasing, putting others before yourself.
That's definitely insecurity.
Yeah.
Because when a person does not feel confident about their own worthiness, then they work to try and get other people's approval. Yeah. So it's more about like trying to avoid conflict and earn love and respect when that person does not feel solid on the inside to withstand disapproval from others, if that's what tends to happen.
Yeah. I think there's people pleasing. I think that there's I think when people think about somebody who is like the opposite of that, they give that a negative thing too, like, oh, you're selfish.
Yes.
Yes. Like, God forbid I put myself in front of somebody else. My gosh. So that's hard too. It's like people will think you're selfish if you're not cowering, but like not, I don't know. Sometimes I just think that it's almost like a bad thing. And people see it as a bad thing if you are putting your needs in front of.
And it's not.
I don't think it is either. I'm much happier.
Because we all have our wants and needs, and we have to kind of follow that, because otherwise you're going to always be this people pleaser all the time. You're never going to get anything you want, anything that you need. And again, like you said, it's not about being selfish.
It's not about being a good person or a bad person either.
Right, exactly. But people take it in that negative way for whatever reason. Yeah,
and also too, if you think about people pleasing, it's like people do that. I heard some things said about like it's kind of an act of I don't know if this is true, like an act of manipulation almost, because and it's probably, if I think about myself, I think it is true, because you're doing this, you're trying to manipulate others into liking you and it's kind of funny
approval.
If you think about it that way. It's like,
right, I'm
doing this for my own gain. Actually, I'm doing people pleasing, but I'm doing this so you like me. So it's actually, in the end, I'm actually doing it for myself.
Yeah.
So it is a little bit manipulative. Okay, self-awareness, sign of confidence or insecurity.
Well, that's definitely a sign of confidence too, because if you're self-aware, you have the ability to see within yourself.
Yeah.
If you have no self-awareness, I mean, you're gonna make pretty bad judgments and decisions.
Not to be confused though with self-consciousness, which is a different thing. What is like the difference?
Well, the difference between self-conscious is being aware of things around you or something within yourself. So, and being self-aware is both a sign of like being confident and, secure.
Yeah. And like knowing that your reality is not everybody else's reality.
Exactly.
Like I remember when I was on the cruise for Jasmine's birthday, I was talking to this lady an older woman who had some issue with her daughter, and she like didn't react well. Like she was probably when I say older, I just mean she's like my mom's age. And she didn't react well. She just didn't handle the situation well. And then she gave some thought and everything, and took the time, and then she went back and apologized and just changed her behavior. And I remember saying, like, that is so self-aware of you, because a lot of times, especially that age group, we become set in our ways the older we get.
Oh, exactly.
I just remember thinking, like, that's self-awareness to be able to have that crazy of a reaction over something that the mom was in the wrong. Mm-hmm. And then to go, it was like a lot of people
thought about it and took a step back and like, wait a minute.
A lot of people are unwilling to like understand that the way our reality is and the way we live our life doesn't necessarily apply to it. It's not copy and paste.
It's not.
Yeah. So that's self-awareness. Self-consciousness is where you're thinking everybody's like thinking about you.
Exactly.
And everybody's looking at you.
Paying attention to you, judging you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, which is awful too. Oh.
Yeah, it leads to so much anxiety.
And that's like a big teenage thing too, I think.
Oh, yeah.
High school. Competitiveness.
I think that can be both a sign of confidence and insecurity, because if you use competition as you can use competition as a motivator, like to set goals and focus on, improving yourself, which is channeling it in a healthy way. But on the opposite end, most competitive people will often struggle with insecurity, and they just rely on external measures of success to feel good about themselves. Mm-hmm. So, because again, these competitive people need this constant validation from other people. Like, you're good,
or they need to win.
Great. You need to win.
They need to be the best.
Mm-hmm. I think of like Olympic athletes, like, I have to win, or if I don't win, I'm nothing.
Yeah, it's hard because on one hand, it's like that's like to work that hard. Mm-hmm. Like I always look back to like the intention. What is your intention? Is your like if you're trying to fill a void? Because a lot of times when the Olympics are over, they'll tell you that like they go into this deep depression.
Yeah, because they have nothing. What are they striving for now?
Yeah. It's funny because it's like I had this episode with my friend Jessica a while back, and I just was saying that it's me being self-deprecating again, by the way, but like I've never been a winner at anything. I've always pretty much lost.
Have.
No, I mean like I'm trying. Like what I mean is like I've never been in the habit of being the best. So for me, whenever I see people that are like they have to be the best, they have to win, I'm just like, what's that like? It's super fascinating to me, and I would love to get somebody who'd be willing to come on and like tell their story about this, because I want to get in their head.
That'd be a great episode.
Okay. Oh, we are kind of already talked about this, but oversharing on social media. I think it depends. I really do. I think it depends on the person.
I think so too. Yeah.
Anything else you want to say about that?
Again, well, I mean, I think like people that, like we talked about on social media, it's like, are they posting to build themselves up, increase their self-esteem or confidence, or are they doing for, other various reasons? But I think people that just overshare, I think sometimes, majority of the time, it's because they have this like low self-esteem within themselves. Mm-hmm. And they need,
it's like the hit.
Yeah, the like button. That like button. Like if I don't get enough likes, then I'm not good enough. Or
it's that. But on the other hand, I really do. I know some people who I feel like that is their. I don't like almost like a hobby. Like
it could definitely
it just really enjoy engaging with the public, and they're not getting paid. It's not like a job. It's not like an influencer, but And I always think, gosh, that's so much work. But if I guess if it's fulfilling in a healthy way,
then
I think only we know. I think only we know what our intention is. Are we doing this because we need that hit of dopamine? Are we doing it because we really love engaging with our friends on?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think like overall, I think like most of the time, if the person is insecure about their image, they're going to seek out these compliments, because people are going to post comments, and they're going to click that like button. It's just a way to feel better about themselves.
Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people really take on the role to inspire.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, which I don't think is a bad thing. But that could also, but the next thing I was to say is overly positive, like that whole, like that would be like the next feed right into the next thing, like people who are only talking about, sunshine and rainbows and like posting the quotes and everything else. And I've been there too. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I think can be some sign of insecurity as well, because if you're just like only thinking positive thoughts or like posting positive like images, you're kind of avoiding like what's the real true emotions you have behind how you're feeling, because you're just like again masking it.
Yeah, or giving a false impression that this is real life.
Right. So you're basically like denying, dismissing, ignoring, or just like invalidating your emotions because they feel uncomfortable to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah.
They call like toxic positivity.
Yeah. But do you ever get in circles where I do? You probably don't because you're quieter than I am. But sometimes I think I'm like a little bit unfiltered, not in like a cursing way, not like but I'm a little bit like I'm just myself. And I think so many people wear facades and they feel like they need to be
presented like a certain way.
Yes. And it makes people uncomfortable when you're yourself almost. That overly positive, a walking facade, which I've been that too, is sometimes more comfortable because it's nice and shallow.
Yeah.
We're not going too far into the depths. So yeah, but you outgrow that after a while.
You do. It's like we have to go through all these stages.
We do.
of life.
That's what I'm saying. And you can't judge any of it because I personally have been through a lot of this stuff, you know.
So have I.
Yeah. And it's like I went through that for a reason. It served a purpose at the time, except for probably not the competitiveness thing. Hopefully, I wish I was a little more competitive. I'd probably, I don't know why I'm not.
See, I'm competitive against only myself. I've never been a competitive person against anybody else because number one, I know as a runner, there's so many amazing runners. I can't compete with that, nor do I want to. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to just compete with myself and push myself harder each time, you know.
I think I have this weird thing that if I win, it means somebody else has to lose. And I feel uncomfortable with that.
You don't want them to lose.
It's weird. It's like not even like it's not even like a win. It's like if I am like an outlier in a good way, that
you want to make them look good.
I kind of just want to blend in. You know, but then again, my interests aren't like everybody. So I want to do other things that these people don't want to do. So what am I not going to follow my interests?
Right.
You know, like I have different interests. So me following my interests might send me in a direction that's a little more positive, maybe get more success eventually. You know, and then you abandon your ambition in favor of not making anybody feel uncomfortable. Like the fact that I did that silly fitness competition, that was like absolutely ridiculous that I did it, but I did it.
No, but you did.
It's a big
amazing.
deal. It's a huge deal for me. And I felt so silly doing it because it was like, but it was more about like the mental aspect of it. But anyways, it's like nobody in my circle was doing that kind of stuff. The people that like want the best for you want the best for you.
Yeah. And they'll let you know. I mean, even like going back to like your fitness competition, I mean, did you just maybe feel like I didn't want that attention on me?
I felt really, the funny thing is it's like, I really tried to want the attention, but because I thought I'm going to make this into, because I really wanted to get back to work so badly. So I'm like, I'm going to be a health coach. So I actually paid like way too much money and went to like get health coach certified and went to like Arizona for like a conference, like the whole thing. And tried to like post pictures of my abs on social media. I'm like, I'm going to make money off of this big accomplishment that I just did. I'm going to make this into something because I thought I didn't work this hard just to like let it go now. So I was trying, but I was so uncomfortable. And I remember one day going on my stories going, okay, I'm done showing my abs. I can't do it another day. And so that was the end of that. So, but it's like I wanted to be that person. It just wasn't the right avenue. This is, for me, much more comfortable. If I'm going to self-promote, it's going to be like within this direction. I still don't know really. I mean, I know why I did the fitness competition because for me it was like a mental thing. It was like I'm proving to myself that I am strong, that I can do this after so many years of weakness, and I would never do it again probably. But it was more of a mental feat than anything else. But I think it was kind of weird for the people around me going like, "What on earth is she
doing? This is
so
not like
weird.
her."
Like I thought you were sick, that kind of thing. Like, okay, last one, confrontational.
I feel that someone who's confrontational often uses like aggressive language and gestures to express their opinions or feelings. So I feel like this is more like an insecurity.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you think about it, they tend to blame other people for their problems and avoid taking responsibility, for their own actions and respecting others' boundaries. So if they feel challenged or threatened in any way, they're going to resort to using threats, insults, or violence possibly. So people who are confrontational usually have low self-esteem and are very insecure, which is why they are defensive and hostile.
Okay, so if somebody, if you're in line somewhere and somebody cuts in front of you, and they know they're cutting in front of you, you know they're cutting in front of you, what do?
I don't say anything.
I don't either. Because to me, I'm always, this is what I tell my kids too, I'm like, it's just not worth it to me. It's like, whatever. But some people will see that as like, I'm not going to allow that blatant disrespect. And I'm going to say, I'm sorry. The line's right here.
I had this happen to me the other day.
Did you?
This is a grocery store.
Okay.
So I was in the checkout lane. There's a lady, ahead of me, and another checker opened her, register, and I wasn't paying attention. I was like zoned out. And so the lady's like, okay, I can take you over here. So I walked over. The other lady ahead of me comes and cuts right in front of me. She says, well, I was here first. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, because I wasn't paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, she, took it in a very negative way.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think that, it depends on what the stakes are. It depends on,
Right.
I mean, like, but some people, that's a big deal. Like disrespect is like
absolutely.
a huge, like they don't allow it and they don't care. They're going to make a scene,
Right.
whatever. I won't,
I won't
cut me
either.
off in traffic. It's fine. Just keep it moving. Like I'm just not that reactionary with that kind of stuff. Confrontation for me would be more like, I don't even know last time I had it, but it is an issue for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't enjoy it.
I don't like confrontation, conflict.
Yeah.
I try to avoid it at all costs.
And it's probably because I don't feel that defensive by nature. I'm just not that, but sometimes I know that I need to be more.
Mm-hmm.
I need to,
Depends on the situation.
it does. Yeah. But sometimes it does call for it and I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
I
know.
I will do it. I'm at the point now where I will do it because I'm not going to run from things. It just is principle.
Right.
But I don't, and I do think the more I do it, I'm trying to give an example, but I'm like having a hard time coming up with one. I know I must have some, but,
I guess for me, I don't let things bother me too much. So to have conflict, like,
okay, let me give you, I have an example.
Okay.
For you. You probably have experienced this. Have you had like a client or even like somebody like repeatedly like cancel, not pay their bill, like something
Yes.
like where you have to, that's uncomfortable.
I don't like that.
Yeah, but you have to, right? You have to say
I have
something.
to say something, but it takes me a while to get the courage to like say something.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of like, it's not confrontational in an aggressive way, but it is, you
No.
have to confront it.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to set the boundary.
Right. Right. And so do you think it's all in the delivery?
I absolutely think it is, because you don't want to come off like as rude or, insensitive. So that's why I think I take a long time to process, like, what am I going to say and how am I going to word it?
So you and I are like that. We're going to think about how we're going to approach it, where somebody else is like, they're very reactionary.
Yeah, they're
like,
just going to say what they
They
think.
can't even help themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I have, one of my kids has a friend, I won't say who, one of my kids has a friend who, and my kid was in the car and they got cut off in a drive-through. And I'll just say it's Dutch Bros because they have the two drive-throughs that come together like that.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody cut them off. And the friend who was driving, my kid was in the passenger, went off. Like was so upset.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the disrespect. But this
Right.
person's sort of parents like are kind of the same way. And so it's like, I mean, they didn't get in a fight or anything with the person, but they were
Right.
not happy. It was like a big deal. And my kid came to me and was like, oh my God, because I've never been that way. So they're not used to seeing that like their whole life. So anyway, I just think that some people can't, they have a harder, we would rather let it go. And they have a really hard time letting it go. Like
Right.
there's two different types, I think, of people. And I think somewhere in the middle is where we all need to be. That's like the
Exactly.
lesson here is we all need to find some
Middle
balance.
ground.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So one last question before we close. I think you mentioned that you oftentimes in your practice find that there are people who are like they're confident in one area of their lives, like work, for example, but maybe clueless in another area. I feel like you said it was pretty common for someone to be like confident professionally or lack confidence in their relationships. And I have been thinking about this, about people, my own life and even me. And I think it's 100% true. It is. So why do you think this happens?
Well, I'm going to give the example related to those that have successful professional jobs.
Yeah.
And, you know, and again, I think it's important to look at the family origin when it comes to that specific area, and why these people lack confidence in relationships. Because I have a number of clients right now that I'm seeing that have, you know, pretty high-powered jobs, like they're attorneys, scientists, you know, things like that. And they grew up in families where strong work ethics were reinforced and valued above everything else, even including relationships. So for instance, I have a client right now where this is the exact same case. Grew up, her parents are very like, go to a good school, get a great job, but they never taught her really what it was like to be in a relationship, like how to pursue a relationship, like, you know, how to, you know, form those emotions and understand them. And so she struggles with that because she's so focused on work and succeeding in that area. So I think the message, again, she's getting this message of like, you know, if you succeed through achievements, you'll succeed in life. Well, she's not succeeding because she wants to be in a relationship, but she doesn't know how to be in one. Yeah. So it's really a struggle for her. And so I'm trying to kind of guide her in things that she could do.
Yeah.
But
you feel like this is common?
Right now, my practice is really common.
I think it is too.
Yeah.
I think the more, when you brought it up to me, I started thinking about like just people I've known throughout life. And I'm like, I know so many people who are amazing at work, but their home lives can or have been at times disastrous. Where I'm the opposite, right? So like I've always had a pretty good home life, but I not great. Well, for extenuating factors as well, obviously with myself, but like I don't have the most. I've a lot of confidence at home.
Right.
Like I know what I'm doing. You know, I know what I'm doing there. I feel very confident, comfortable in the position at home that I have as a mom and a wife and taking care of the house and all the things, and within those relationships at home.
Right.
In the professional arena, it doesn't come as naturally at all. And so I find that I lack confidence even in like the wording I use in my correspondence. I have to always proofread it for areas where I may appear insecure. There's certain words like just, I learned is like an insecure word. Just this, like there's like wording. And so I've learned to like, I have to train myself. It's the same thing. It's just reversed.
Right.
And so anybody that's going through, like they feel like they're a failure at home. Well, some of us, we fail at the other side. So none of us got it all figured out.
No,
we're all on a
and
journey.
it's kind of hard to figure all of it out. I mean, you can better yourself in those areas, but it's not going to, can't expect to be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Where I think that just as you go, you learn and you improve and you get better. And I think as long as you're willing to, then I think we all can. Sometimes it's a slower process, but I feel like this was a really great conversation.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Trying to see. Oh, it's our longest podcast
really?
yet, I think.
Is
well,
it?
About the same. Yeah. Okay, so hopefully a lot of you guys will relate with this and gain something from it. Before we sign out, I want to give you guys a heads up for the upcoming season. The upload schedule is going to be changing a bit for season 4. I'm going to make a separate video about this, but just wanted to let you guys know that it may not be every week. It may not be every Thursday. Like I said, I'm going to make a separate video, but basically I'm really going more for quality over quantity and a more thoughtful approach to what I'm bringing each week. And because of some stuff that occurred during my break, I wasn't able to sort of get organized in time to be able to give a super consistent upload schedule. So again, I'm going to make a separate video about this. I probably will have a video next week. But if I don't, just know that's why. And I will address this in a different video. So just wanted to give you guys a heads up on that. And I will explain everything then. So with that, thanks, Kateri, so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me again.
We love it. Thanks, you guys, for listening, and we will see you guys back here soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed this conversation, please give it a like and leave me a comment. I want to know what you guys think. Also, if you're looking for more information about how to be a guest on the show, please go to our website at humanityunlockedpodcast.com. We only record shows in person, and we are located in Sacramento, California. Oh, and if you're not subscribed, make sure you tap that button so you can get updated on weekly episodes as they go live. Is that it? I think that's it. See you guys next time.